The renovation crew had been upgrading Mountain View Animal Clinic's facilities for 2 days when they discovered a sealed room behind the old surgery wall. It was September 20th, 2024, and 41-year-old contractor Jake Peterson broke through the drywall to find a small storage space that wasn't on any blueprint. Inside, on the concrete floor, lay a human skeleton still wearing a veterinary coat, a stethoscope draped around the neck bones. Within hours, DNA would confirm what the small Montana town of Riverside had feared for 15 years. They'd finally found Dr. Sarah Williams, the beloved veterinarian who vanished after an emergency call on March 15, 2009. Her clinic had been left with the lights on, surgical instruments laid out on the table, patient files open on her computer, as if she'd simply stepped away to check on an animal. The truth was far darker. She'd been murdered and sealed in a wall by someone she'd trusted as a business partner, someone whose gambling debts had turned him desperate, someone who'd continued running the clinic for years using her reputation. For 15 years, animals had been treated in rooms just feet away, never knowing their beloved doctor's body lay hidden behind the walls. Jake Peterson was an experienced contractor at 41 years old. He'd been doing repairs for veterinary clinics and farm buildings in the Montana area for 18 years and had worked on dozens of rural projects. Mountain View Animal Clinic wanted renovation for new equipment and an expanded surgery room. The clinic had been operating since 2005 and was showing its age. Jake and his crew started work on September 18, 2024, expecting a straightforward week-long job. On the afternoon of September 20th, they were removing walls in the old surgery area. The plan was to expand the space significantly and create room for modern equipment and better workflow. Jake was carefully removing drywall panels when he noticed something strange and unusual. The wall was much thicker than normal, nearly 7 inches when it should have been 4. The architectural plans didn't show a wall this thick at all. "Wait," he told crew member Tom, who'd been working with him for 3 years. "There's something here that's not right. This doesn't match the plans at all." When he fully removed the drywall section, he saw a small enclosed space behind it, about 3 feet wide, 5 feet long, like a small closet, completely sealed with no visible entrance, and inside, illuminated by his powerful work flashlight, a skeleton wearing a white veterinary coat, a stethoscope still draped around the bone neck. Beside it lay a black medical bag and scattered patient files, yellowed with age. Jake's hands trembled as he backed away. "My God, call the police right now." Riverside Sheriff's Department was on scene within 20 minutes. 2 patrol cars arrived first, followed by Detective Sarah Chen's unmarked vehicle. Chen was 44 years old with 19 years of law enforcement experience. She knew rural Montana communities well and understood their close-knit nature. Forensic teams carefully examined the sealed area. Crime scene technicians photographed every angle, measured distances, collected samples. The skeleton was positioned in a standing position, leaning against the back wall. There was obvious blunt force trauma to the back of the skull, multiple impact points. Clothing remnants included a white veterinary coat with a name tag barely readable, jeans, and sneakers. A wristwatch on the left wrist had stopped at exactly 11:45 p.m. "Veterinarian," Chen said, kneeling beside the remains, "worked here. Let's look thoroughly into this clinic's complete history." Clinic records were examined over the next several hours. Founded in 2005 by Dr. Sarah Williams, a young veterinarian who'd returned to her hometown. There was one significant missing person case in the files. Dr. Sarah Williams, 34 years old, veterinarian, disappeared March 15, 2009. Chen opened the thick 2009 case file. Sheriff Robert Hayes had conducted the original investigation. Hayes was now retired and living in Billings, but Chen called him that evening. "Sarah Williams," Hayes said slowly, 67 years old. Never forgot that case. It haunted me for years. Wonderful veterinarian. The whole town loved her. She disappeared after supposedly getting an emergency call one night. We looked everywhere for months. No trace whatsoever. Any suspicious people at the time? Chen asked. Hayes paused. Her business partner, Michael Patterson. He took over the clinic after she vanished. Seemed genuinely upset. No red flags. DNA comparison was done immediately. Sarah's mother, Margaret Williams, 73, still lived in Riverside. Reference sample provided. A week later, the result came. Perfect match. The skeleton sealed in the wall was definitely Sarah Williams. Sarah Elizabeth Williams was born in Montana on June 8, 1975. She grew up in Riverside, the only child of Margaret and Thomas Williams. Her father owned a small ranch. From a young age, Sarah showed extraordinary interest in animals. She'd help with farm animals, rescue injured birds, care for sick calves. She was naturally talented. At 12, she successfully treated her first dog for a broken leg. After finishing high school with honors in 1993, she was accepted to Colorado State University Veterinary School. She graduated in 1999 with distinction. She worked for several years at a large veterinary clinic in Denver, gaining experience with both small animals and livestock. In 2005, at age 30, she decided to return to her hometown. I want to serve people and animals here, she told her mother. Not the big city, this is where I belong, where I can make a real difference. In 2005, she opened Mountain View Animal Clinic with a small business loan and her savings. As the only veterinary clinic in the area, she served the entire rural community. Pets, farm animals, ranch livestock, all were Sarah's responsibility. In emergencies, she'd be called even at midnight and would never refuse. The town loved her deeply. She was patient, dedicated, truly cared about every animal. She'd treat families with poor finances for free or reduced cost. She organized free vaccination clinics for low-income pet owners. She was more than a veterinarian. She was part of the community fabric. In 2007, she got engaged to David Cooper, a biology teacher at the local high school. They'd met at a community event and bonded over their love of science and helping others. They bought a small house on Elm Street, adopted 2 rescue dogs named Max and Bella. They planned to marry in summer 2010. Sarah was genuinely happy with her life, but there was something important Sarah didn't know. Her business partner was becoming increasingly dangerous. Michael Patterson was born in Montana in 1971 in a troubled family. Difficult childhood. Father was an alcoholic who left when Michael was young. Mother died of cancer when he was 16. He was raised partly by an aunt. He trained as a veterinary assistant at a technical school. In 2007, at age 36, he started working at Sarah's clinic. Sarah liked Michael initially. He was hardworking, skilled with animals, seemed dedicated. In 2008, she made him a business partner, giving him 30% ownership. He's reliable and committed, she told David. We can grow the clinic together and serve more animals. But Michael had a secret problem that Sarah knew nothing about: severe gambling addiction. On weekends, he'd drive to casinos in Missoula, 3 hours away. First, he bet small amounts, then progressively more. By early 2009, he owed over $80,000 to various casinos and dangerous loan sharks. Creditors were pressuring him constantly. Phone calls, threats, demands for immediate payment. Michael was desperate and drowning. He'd maxed out credit cards, borrowed from friends, sold his truck. Nothing was enough. Sarah's clinic had a substantial insurance policy, $200,000 death benefit. If something happened to Sarah, as her business partner, Michael would inherit her share and could claim the insurance payout. In March 2009, creditors gave him a final ultimatum: pay $50,000 within 1 week or face severe consequences. Michael had no money and no options. but he had a terrible plan forming in his desperate mind. March 15th, 2009, Sunday evening. Sarah was working late at the clinic, catching up on paperwork and post-surgery notes after a busy week. Michael was also there, supposedly cleaning and organizing. At 11:30 p.m., Sarah's phone rang. She answered immediately. A caller claiming to be Farmer Johnson said his horse was critically ill, possibly colic, needed emergency veterinary attention. Sarah didn't hesitate. She prepared her emergency medical bag. "I'm heading out to Johnson's ranch," she told Michael. "Can you lock up when you're done?" "Of course," Michael said. "But first, could you help me check something in the back storage? I think there's a leak, and I want your opinion before you leave." Sarah, always helpful, followed him to the back storage area. Michael followed close behind. The storage was dimly lit and quiet. "Where exactly?" Sarah asked, looking around. Michael hesitated for just a moment. His hands were shaking. Then he made his decision. There was a heavy metal rod leaning against the wall, normally used for moving large dog cages. Michael grabbed it with both hands and struck Sarah's head from behind. The impact was brutal and sudden. Sarah fell to the concrete floor, shocked and confused. "Michael, why?" Michael, panicking now, adrenaline surging, struck her again, then again. Sarah stopped moving. Blood pooled on the floor. Michael dropped the rod and checked her pulse with trembling fingers. Nothing. Sarah Williams was dead. Michael backed away, breathing heavily. What had he just done? He'd killed Sarah, the woman who'd trusted him, who'd made him a partner, who'd believed in him. But then cold reality hit. This was his solution. If Sarah disappeared mysteriously, the clinic would become his. The insurance money would pay his debts. He could survive this. Michael worked quickly through the night, driven by fear and desperation. In the back, storage was an unused alcove area, leftover space from when the original surgery room was expanded years ago. It had been walled off partially, but never finished. Michael dragged Sarah's body into that space. He positioned her against the back wall, tried to make it look respectful somehow. Then he spent the next several hours building a complete wall to seal the space permanently. He found drywall panels, screws, joint compound, and paint in the clinic's supply room. He worked methodically until morning. By dawn, the wall looked like it had been there for years. Then he thoroughly cleaned the storage area. He wiped every trace of blood using bleach and paper towels, cleaned the metal rod, organized everything to look completely normal. He left Sarah's main office exactly as it was, computer on with patient files open, her coffee mug half full on the desk, her jacket hanging on the chair. The scene looked like Sarah had simply stepped out to handle an emergency and would return any moment. At sunrise, Michael drove home, took a long shower, and tried to sleep, but he couldn't. Sarah's face was in his mind. Her voice asking why echoed endlessly, but he told himself he had no choice. It was survival. The next morning, David Cooper tried calling Sarah repeatedly. No answer. He drove to the clinic, worried. Sarah's car was in the parking lot. Her purse was in her office. Her phone was on her desk, but Sarah herself was nowhere to be found. David immediately called police. Sheriff Hayes arrived within minutes. The clinic was searched thoroughly. Everything appeared normal except Sarah was missing. It made no sense. Hayes questioned Michael extensively. "When did you last see Sarah?" "Last night around 11:30, Michael said, seeming genuinely worried. "She got an emergency call from Farmer Johnson about a sick horse. She grabbed her medical bag and left. I assumed she drove to his ranch." Farmer Johnson was contacted immediately. "I never called Dr. Williams," he said, confused. "My horses are all fine. I don't know what you're talking about." That's when the investigation intensified. Searches were organized. Volunteers combed the countryside. Search dogs tracked Sarah's scent from the clinic to the parking lot. then lost it. Lakes and rivers were dragged. Abandoned buildings were checked. Weeks passed. No trace of Sarah Williams. David was emotionally devastated. Margaret refused to give up hope completely. "She'll come back someday," she'd say, though her voice grew less certain with each passing month. Michael took over the clinic operations. "I want to continue Sarah's important work," he announced to the community. "She'd want the animals to continue being cared for. It's what she would have wanted." The town, grieving and supportive, accepted this. Michael ran the clinic competently, using Sarah's established reputation. He collected the $200,000 insurance payout after Sarah was legally declared missing. He paid off his gambling debts completely. But the gambling addiction didn't end. Within a year, Michael was back at the casinos. The cycle continued, though he was more careful now, never letting debts get as dangerous again. For 15 long years, Michael operated Sarah's clinic as his own. Every single day, he walked past Sarah's memorial photo hanging in the waiting room. He told customers, "I miss working with her so much," and accepted their sympathies. When Margaret brought her aging dogs for checkups, he was especially kind and gentle, all while knowing Sarah's body was sealed in a wall just 50 feet away. Until September 2024. Jake Peterson's crew broke through that wall during renovation. Detective Chen worked closely with genetic genealogy specialist Dr. Lisa Park from the State Crime Lab. Forensic analysis found trace DNA on Sarah's bones and clothing, skin cells, and biological material that Michael had inevitably left behind while moving her body. A detailed genetic profile was created. Dr. Park uploaded the DNA profile to public genealogy databases. 4 weeks of analysis later, a match emerged: Michael Patterson. On October 15, 2024, Detective Chen arrived at Michael's house with 2 deputies. Michael opened the door, looking exhausted and older than his 53 years. "Detective Chen, I knew someone would come eventually," he said quietly. "Mr. Patterson, you're under arrest in connection with the murder of Sarah Williams." Michael nodded slowly. "I know. You found her. I've carried this burden for 15 years. Part of me is relieved it's finally over." At the station, Michael requested an attorney, but then decided to confess fully. "I've lived with her ghost for 15 years, he told Chen, tears streaming down his face. "Every time I treated an animal, every time I talked to a customer, Sarah was there. I didn't plan to kill her. I just got desperate. The gambling debts, the threats from loan sharks. Sarah's insurance seemed like my only way out. One moment of panic and violence. But that moment cost Sarah everything: her life, her future, her dreams, and it cost me my soul." The confession was detailed and complete. That night, the fake emergency call, the attack, hiding the body, sealing the wall, taking over the clinic, claiming the insurance money, everything. When the news spread through Riverside, the community was shocked and betrayed. Michael Patterson, the trusted veterinarian who'd continued Sarah's work, was her killer. Margaret gave an emotional press statement. "My daughter trusted Michael completely. She made him her partner, believed in him, and Michael murdered her for insurance money. For 15 years, I brought my dogs to him for treatment. I thanked him for continuing Sarah's work. I supported and trusted my daughter's killer. The betrayal is unspeakable." The trial began in December 2024. Michael was charged with first-degree murder. His attorney tried to argue for a reduced charge due to the desperation caused by gambling addiction, but the prosecutor was firm. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. At the sentencing hearing, Margaret spoke through tears. "Michael built his career on my daughter's corpse. He lied every single day for 15 years. He deserves every day of his punishment." The judge announced the sentence: life in prison with possibility of parole after 25 years. Michael was 53 years old. He could apply for parole at age 78, though it was unlikely to be granted. Michael stood and faced the courtroom. "I deserve this sentence. Sarah didn't deserve what I did. I wish I could take it back, but I can't. I'll spend the rest of my life living with what I've done." Mountain View Clinic was officially renamed Dr. Sarah Williams Memorial Animal Clinic. A bronze plaque was installed. Dr. Sarah Williams, 1975 to 2009, dedicated veterinarian who served animals and community with compassion, never forgotten. All funds Michael had gained were seized and given to animal welfare charities in Sarah's name. Detective Chen said in media interviews, "Killers are sometimes people we trust most." Michael lied for 15 years while working in Sarah's clinic. Modern DNA technology and genetic genealogy brought justice. Riverside is slowly healing. The clinic continues serving the community. Sarah's legacy of compassionate animal care lives on. If this story moved you, please subscribe and hit the like button. Comment which case you'd like us to investigate next.